Pause for a moment and examine your last 24 hours. What did you feed your mind? News alerts about crisis, opinions disguised as facts, complaints from coworkers, sarcasm from social media. Now ask yourself honestly, how much of your current mindset was chosen and how much was absorbed? The world is not neutral. It competes for your attention every minute. Every headline, every advertisement, every argument is attempting to shape what you believe about money, success, relationships, and your own potential. Influence is constant. Awareness is rare. Most people believe they think independently, yet their fears mirror the headlines. Their doubts echo their surroundings. Their ambitions shrink to match the comfort level of their peers. They are not weak, they are unguarded. You were not born pessimistic. You were conditioned, slowly, subtly, repeatedly. A careless remark here, a disappointing experience there, a teacher's limitation, a friend's sarcasm. Layer by layer, the world suggested what was realistic. Negativity spreads faster than possibility because it requires less imagination. It is easier to predict failure than to build faith. And when fear is repeated often enough, it begins to feel logical. Have you noticed how quickly enthusiasm fades after a negative conversation? You enter inspired. You leave uncertain. The idea did not change. The environment did. Influence is powerful when left unexamined. The average person wakes up and immediately invites programming into the mind. Before defining personal goals, they scroll through anxiety. Before affirming ambition, they absorb someone else's outrage. They surrender mental territory before defending it. Your mind is not a passive storage space. It is a creative mechanism. Whatever dominates it repeatedly becomes expectation, and expectation quietly shapes action. If you constantly hear that opportunity is scarce, you will hesitate when opportunity appears. If you constantly hear that success is reserved for the lucky, you will shrink from responsibility when progress demands courage. This is how programming works, not through force, but through repetition, not through obvious control, but through subtle suggestion. The subconscious does not argue. It accepts what it hears most often. Negativity often disguises itself as realism. I'm just being practical. I'm just being cautious. But practicality without vision becomes limitation. Caution without courage becomes paralysis. The world will offer you endless reasons to doubt. Economic instability, political tension, social division, each may be real. But the interpretation you choose determines your emotional state. Two individuals can face identical circumstances. One sees collapse, the other sees challenge. The difference is not environment, it is internal programming. If you do not deliberately choose your dominant thoughts, the environment will choose them for you. That is not theory, it is psychological law. The mind absorbs the ideas it hears most frequently. Look carefully at your conversations. Are they centered on possibility or complaint, on solutions or blame? Your associations are shaping your beliefs, whether you acknowledge it or not. You must become selective with ruthless intention, not defensive, but disciplined. Not paranoid, but purposeful. Guard your mind as if your future depends on it, because it does. This does not mean ignoring problems. It means refusing to rehearse them obsessively. It means acknowledging difficulty without surrendering imagination to it. Your imagination is a sacred instrument. When negativity dominates it, fear grows vivid. When possibility dominates it, strategy becomes visible. The same faculty produces both anxiety and ambition. Have you ever noticed how a single empowering idea can change your entire mood? How a strong vision can override temporary discouragement? That is the power of intentional thought replacing passive programming. Programming becomes identity when left unchallenged. You begin saying, "I'm just not confident," or "I'm just not lucky." These are not truths. They are repeated suggestions accepted as fact. The first step in reclaiming your mind is awareness. Recognize when a thought did not originate from your definite purpose, but from external repetition. The second step is substitution. Replace fear-based narratives with deliberate affirmations of capability. Replace complaint with constructive planning. Replace doubt with disciplined belief reinforced daily. Belief is strengthened through repetition. The same mechanism that allowed negativity to settle into your mind can be used to install confidence, persistence, and vision. When you intentionally feed your mind empowering ideas each morning, you establish emotional immunity. The world may still shout, but it will not penetrate as easily. You will begin to notice something extraordinary. The same headlines that once unsettled you will now appear as information rather than threat. The same criticism that once stung will now feel irrelevant. This shift is not arrogance. It is mental sovereignty. It is the recognition that your inner environment is more important than the outer one. The world will not become quieter. It will not become less opinionated. It will not suddenly encourage your ambition. Waiting for that change is surrender. Instead, build an internal foundation so strong that external turbulence loses its authority. Anchor your thoughts to a definite purpose. Revisit your goals daily. Surround yourself with voices that reinforce growth. Energy follows attention. If your attention is scattered across fear, your energy will feel weak. If your attention is focused on creation, your energy will feel directed. You cannot prevent exposure to negativity entirely, but you can control dwell time. Do not allow passing information to become permanent belief. Your future is shaped less by events and more by interpretation. Interpretation is guided by dominant thought. Dominant thought is guided by repetition. Repetition is chosen. This is the quiet truth few recognize. Whoever controls your dominant thoughts controls your direction in life. The world will continue offering programming. It will suggest limits. It will reward conformity. It will question ambition. You must decide whether you will absorb those suggestions or reject them, because the moment you become conscious of influence, you regain power. And when you regain power over your thoughts, you reclaim control over your destiny. Do not let a negative world write the script of your life. Write it yourself with intention, discipline, and belief that no external noise has the right to define what you are capable of becoming. After examining your recent hours with honesty, you will discover that much of what you call your thinking has been furnished by repetition rather than reflection. You may believe your fears are personal conclusions, yet in many cases they are echoes. Echoes of remarks heard often, echoes of warnings repeated, echoes of opinions spoken confidently enough to feel like fact. The human mind is shaped not so much by dramatic events as by quiet accumulation. A single discouraging statement may not wound ambition, but 100 similar statements, repeated casually over months and years, become conviction. Doubt is rarely born in a moment. It is assembled slowly. A teacher's lowered expectation, a relative's cautious advice, a friend's sarcasm disguised as humor, a headline announcing crisis. None of these may appear decisive alone, yet together they layer suggestion upon suggestion until limitation feels logical. Most men believe they think independently. Yet their fears resemble the fears most commonly discussed in their surroundings. Their expectations match the tone of their environment. Their ambitions shrink or expand according to the climate of conversation they inhabit. The law governing this process is simple. Dominant ideas control action. Whatever thought occupies the mind most frequently becomes expectation. Expectation influences perception. Perception guides decision. Thus, behavior follows belief. If scarcity is discussed repeatedly, the mind begins to anticipate scarcity. If danger is emphasized daily, the imagination rehearses danger. The subconscious mind does not question the source of these impressions. It accepts repetition as truth. Consider the young man who hears continually that opportunity is rare and success reserved for the fortunate. When an opening appears, he hesitates, not because he lacks ability, but because repeated suggestion has convinced him he is an unlikely candidate. Each morning, if you invite alarm into your imagination before defining your purpose, you surrender authority. By the time you approach your own goals, your emotional tone has been influenced by external uncertainty. The cost of unguarded intake is rarely measured. A negative discussion may appear harmless, yet repeated daily it becomes atmosphere. Atmosphere shapes belief. Belief shapes destiny. Fear often disguises itself as realism. I am only being practical, a man declares, while rehearsing defeat. Practical thought is necessary. Yet when practicality is stripped of imagination, it becomes limitation. The first act of mental sovereignty is awareness. Pause when a discouraging thought arises and ask, did this originate from my definite aim, or was it borrowed from repetition? Awareness weakens unconscious influence. When you examine the origin of your thoughts, you reclaim territory. The mind ceases to function as passive recipient. It becomes selective gatekeeper. It accepts what aligns with purpose and rejects what contradicts it. Say to yourself, I examine my thoughts before accepting them. I reject suggestions that weaken my ambition. I choose ideas that strengthen my purpose. This declaration is not mere comfort. It is discipline. It requires that you challenge automatic reactions. It requires that you notice patterns of fear repeated by others and refuse to internalize them without scrutiny. Years are lost because men never question the source of their limitation. 10 years may pass under borrowed doubt. 20 years may fade beneath inherited caution. 30 years may dissolve because a man never separated his own convictions from repeated suggestion. The invisible sculptor of destiny is repetition. Whatever you hear most frequently, you will begin to believe. Whatever you believe, you will begin to expect. Whatever you expect, you will begin to experience. The world is not neutral. It competes for your imagination. Every remark, every printed word, every repeated warning seeks residence in your thought. If you do not defend your imagination, it will be shaped without your consent. This does not require hostility toward the world. It requires selectivity. Just as you would not consume every substance placed before you, you must not consume every idea. The disciplined individual begins each day by establishing his own direction. He reads his definite aim before reading public alarm. He strengthens his belief before encountering doubt. He defines his expectations before absorbing others. Over time, this practice builds immunity. Suggestions that once penetrated easily lose influence. Fear that once felt convincing appears exaggerated. Confidence that once required effort becomes natural. Others may not understand the source of your steadiness. They may say you are fortunate or unusually calm. In truth, you have simply learned to question the sculptor before allowing him to shape your thought. Reclaiming mental territory is not achieved in a single decision. It is reinforced daily. Each time you reject a weakening suggestion, you strengthen sovereignty. Each time you affirm your chosen aim, you reinforce identity. Say daily, "My mind is under my authority. I select my dominant ideas. I do not accept limitation without examination. My future is shaped by chosen belief." Through repetition of such declarations, accompanied by conscious practice, you reverse the machinery that once installed doubt. You use repetition to install conviction. The world may continue presenting alarming reports. Opinions will continue to circulate. Conversations will continue to rehearse scarcity. None of these must dominate you. The difference between a directed life and a reactive life lies in this discipline. The reactive man absorbs and echoes. The directed man examines and selects. Thus, the first step in refusing to let a negative world program you is recognition of influence. When you see how suggestion operates, you weaken its control. In that recognition lies power, and in that power lies the ability to shape your own destiny rather than live as product of repetition. When you understand that your mind has been shaped by repetition, you must next understand how repetition performs its work. The subconscious mind does not debate the ideas impressed upon it. It accepts what is repeated most often, especially when accompanied by emotion. It does not ask whether the idea originated from wisdom or from rumor. It responds to frequency. If a thought of fear is rehearsed daily, it begins to feel reasonable. If doubt is spoken repeatedly, it acquires the appearance of prudence. The man begins to defend his limitation as sound judgment. He declares himself cautious when, in truth, he has been conditioned toward hesitation. There is an important distinction between thoughtful caution and habitual paralysis. Thoughtful caution examines risk and then acts. Habitual paralysis exaggerates risk until action seems unwise. The two may appear similar from the outside, yet one advances while the other delays indefinitely. Public opinion often becomes private belief through this machinery of repetition. When an entire community speaks of scarcity, scarcity feels inevitable. When neighbors rehearse misfortune as constant theme, imagination conforms to that theme. Without deliberate resistance, the mind adapts to its surroundings. Imagination, which should be servant of ambition, becomes servant of anxiety when repeatedly fed images of threat. The same faculty capable of producing strategy and invention becomes instrument of rehearsal for disaster. Consider those periods in history when pessimism prevailed. During economic decline, the majority withdrew in fear, yet a minority invested boldly. Andrew Carnegie expanded during adversity because he refused to adopt the dominant narrative. He substituted faith for prevailing doubt. Henry Ford, when confronted by widespread skepticism, did not allow public caution to define his ambition. He examined facts, yet refused to magnify fear. His resistance to popular pessimism saved years of delay. The principle that protects you is substitution. When a weakening thought enters, you must not merely attempt to suppress it. Suppression strengthens it. Instead, substitute it deliberately with constructive alternative. If a thought declares, "Opportunity is scarce," respond immediately. Opportunity is created through service and initiative. If a voice whispers, "You are unprepared," replace it with, "Preparation grows through action." Substitution must be practiced repeatedly. One affirmation spoken once cannot overcome a suggestion heard 100 times. The mechanism that installed doubt may install confidence through equal repetition. Emotion strengthens impression. When you affirm belief, do so with feeling. Speak your chosen thoughts aloud. See them vividly. Attach emotion to your declaration. The subconscious responds more readily to emotion than to dry reasoning. Say daily, "I choose faith over fear. I substitute courage for doubt. My imagination serves my purpose. I accept only ideas that strengthen my ambition." This discipline interrupts negative cycles. Instead of permitting one discouraging idea to lead to another, you cut the chain and replace it. Each interruption weakens the old pattern and strengthens the new. Years are wasted when fear goes unchallenged. 10 years may be consumed by hesitation born of repeated doubt. 20 years may pass while a man waits for certainty promised by public opinion. 30 years may fade before he recognizes that the limitation was borrowed. The disciplined individual refuses to inherit pessimism. He evaluates facts without surrendering imagination. He accepts caution where necessary, yet rejects paralysis disguised as prudence. Notice how swiftly a repeated thought becomes automatic. At first, you consciously replace fear with faith. Later, the replacement occurs almost instantly. Eventually, confidence becomes reflex. Others will perceive this change. Where once you echoed discouraging remarks, you now respond with possibility. Where once you hesitated under alarming reports, you now assess calmly. They may describe you as unusually composed. In truth, you have mastered substitution. Repetition is neither enemy nor friend by nature. It is instrument. In the hands of environment, it installs doubt. In your own hands, it installs belief. The world will continue to repeat its warnings. It will magnify crisis because crisis commands attention. If you do not substitute deliberately, those warnings will accumulate into conviction. Guard against that accumulation. When you hear alarm, examine it. When you detect exaggeration, correct it internally. When you notice fear rising, counter it immediately. Say, I interrupt negative suggestion. I substitute strength for weakness. My beliefs are chosen, not inherited. Through consistent practice, this becomes discipline. Discipline becomes habit. Habit becomes character. The machinery of repetition does not cease operating. It continues daily. Your task is to control what it installs. Feed it affirmations aligned with your definite purpose. Impress upon it images of achievement. As you do so, the same subconscious that once accepted doubt will begin to accept confidence. The same imagination that once rehearsed loss will begin to rehearse success. This is not mere optimism, it is deliberate conditioning. It is conscious participation in shaping your own thought. In mastering substitution, you prevent the negative world from writing your script. You take up the pen yourself. Thus, the second step in refusing external programming is this: understand the machinery of repetition and use it deliberately. Replace borrowed fear with chosen faith repeatedly and with conviction. In that disciplined repetition lies the power to save years once lost to hesitation. In that practice lies the beginning of mental independence and enduring achievement. No man can protect his mind if he neglects the company he keeps. Thought is contagious. Emotional tone travels from one person to another with little resistance. If you sit daily among those who rehearse defeat, you will feel the gravity of their expectation pressing upon your own ambition. The influence of association is subtle. It enters through ordinary talk, through remarks made in passing, through repeated phrases such as "times are hard," "nothing ever changes," or "success is rare." None of these statements may seem decisive alone, yet repeated frequently, they form atmosphere. Atmosphere shapes belief. Belief shapes action. Action shapes result. Thus, a man may unknowingly adopt limitation simply by dwelling among it. Habitual complainers rarely intend harm. They may believe they are merely stating facts, yet their continual rehearsal of grievance establishes a climate of resignation. In that climate, ambition struggles to breathe. There is a difference between sympathy and surrender. You may understand another's difficulty without adopting his despair. You may listen without absorbing, but this requires awareness and strength. The disciplined individual chooses companions who discuss plans rather than problems. He seeks conversation that stimulates imagination rather than stifles it. He surrounds himself with those who speak of service, improvement, and possibility. Andrew Carnegie did not gather around him men who magnified scarcity. He assembled minds that believed in expansion. The mastermind principle rests not merely upon cooperation, but upon harmony of constructive thought. Within such alliance, doubt finds little foothold. Each member reinforces the other. When one falters, another supplies conviction. Collective confidence becomes shield against external pessimism. You must regulate not only personal association, but also exposure to reports that stimulate fear without offering remedy. Staying informed does not require dwelling continually upon alarming commentary. Ask yourself, does this information equip me for action or merely magnify anxiety? If it does not lead to constructive response, limit your exposure. Dwell time is critical. You may encounter negativity without allowing it residence. Brief exposure need not become permanent impression. The problem arises when attention lingers. Environment molds expectation quietly. If you spend hours each week among those who predict collapse, you will begin to anticipate it. If you spend hours among those who build, you will begin to anticipate growth. When you alter your associations deliberately, you will observe change within yourself. Your speech becomes more deliberate, your tone steadier, your outlook broader. Those who prefer complaint may resist your shift. Stand firm without hostility. You are not required to condemn negativity. You are required to guard your mind. Just as you would not invite illness, you must not invite discouragement through constant proximity. Say daily, I choose associations that strengthen my purpose. I limit influence that weakens my resolve. My environment supports my ambition. Through repetition, this choice becomes instinctive. You will find yourself gravitating naturally toward constructive minds. You will lose appetite for conversations centered upon grievance. 10 years may be saved by escaping the gravity of chronic doubt. 20 years may be saved by forming alliance with those who expect growth. 30 years may be preserved by building circle that reinforces ambition instead of restraining it. Within positive association, imagination flourishes, plans expand, confidence strengthens, progress accelerates, because energy is not drained by constant discouragement. Observe men who rise steadily. They rarely dwell among those who rehearse defeat. Their associations reflect their aspirations. The climate you create determines the fruit you harvest. If you create atmosphere of faith, action will follow. If you dwell in atmosphere of fear, hesitation will follow. This principle does not require isolation from society. It requires discrimination. You may interact widely while choosing closely those whose influence penetrates deeply. Affirm, my associations uplift me. My companions encourage growth. I dwell among those who speak of possibility. In guarding association, you reinforce sovereignty established in earlier disciplines. You prevent erosion of belief. You strengthen your internal foundation. The world may remain saturated with complaint, yet your immediate environment need not mirror it. You may construct circle that defies prevailing tone. Thus, the third step in refusing negative programming is deliberate selection of influence. Through conscious association, you protect imagination and reinforce chosen belief. In that protection lies power. In that power lies the preservation of years otherwise surrendered to atmosphere not of your choosing. If the world programs through repetition, then you must program yourself with greater intention. A field left uncultivated grows weeds without effort. A mind left unfed by purpose grows doubt without resistance. Therefore, the first act of discipline each day must be to nourish your own imagination before the world attempts to nourish it for you. Do not rise and immediately invite external suggestion into your thought. Rise and read your definite chief aim. Speak it aloud. Impress it upon your mind with conviction. Let your first mental act be self-directed. The definite chief aim serves not merely as ambition, but as counterweight. It stands against borrowed limitation. When rehearsed daily, it becomes the dominant theme in your thinking, displacing scattered suggestion. Words alone are not sufficient. Emotion must accompany them. The subconscious responds most readily to ideas repeated with feeling. When you declare your purpose, do so with earnestness. See it vividly. Hear it clearly. Feel it as present reality. Morning and evening are strategic hours. The mind is most impressionable when first awakening and just before sleep. What you impress upon it during these periods sinks deeply. Use these hours deliberately. At night, review your aim. Visualize progress. Impress gratitude and confidence upon your mind before sleep. Upon waking, renew your declaration before absorbing outside commentary. Mental rehearsal strengthens identity. If you have been told repeatedly that you are limited, you must rehearse the opposite with equal persistence. Replace "I am not capable" with "I grow stronger through action." Replace "I am unlucky" with "I create opportunity through service." Edwin C. Barnes envisioned partnership with Thomas Edison before circumstances justified the belief. He defined himself before the world recognized him. That internal definition preceded external confirmation. Thomas Edison rehearsed invention mentally before practical success appeared. His confidence was not borrowed from public approval. It was cultivated through deliberate mental conditioning. When you define yourself consistently, the world adjusts its perception gradually. Others begin to see you as you see yourself. Your speech becomes confident, your bearing steady, your decisions firmer. Years are saved through this regimen. 10 years may be preserved by rejecting inherited doubt early. 20 years may be gained by maintaining confidence during public pessimism. 30 years may be reclaimed when you cease living by borrowed definitions. The self-directed mental regimen requires constancy. One day of affirmation cannot overcome years of suggestion, but repetition builds power. What was installed by repetition may be replaced by repetition. Say daily, "I program my own mind. I impress strength, faith, and purpose upon it. I define myself before others attempt to define me." This discipline creates internal stability. When criticism arises, you measure it against your chosen identity. When rumor circulates, you consult your purpose. When comparison tempts discouragement, you return to your chief aim. Gradually, your reflex changes. Instead of reacting to external tone, you respond from internal conviction. Instead of absorbing alarm, you filter it through belief. Others will observe the shift. They may remark that you appear more certain, more deliberate, less influenced by passing opinion. In truth, you have simply established internal command. The world does not cease offering suggestion. It continues daily. But you no longer accept its content without scrutiny. You have installed your own dominant narrative. Affirm, "My mind belongs to me. I choose my identity. I repeat my purpose until it governs my thought." Through consistent internal conditioning, you create mental immunity. Negative suggestion may approach, but it does not root easily. Confidence remains anchored. This regimen transforms reaction into direction. It shortens the period of discouragement following setback. It accelerates recovery from doubt. In establishing this practice, you fulfill the central promise. You prevent the negative world from programming you. You write your own script through deliberate repetition. The saving of years lies not in avoiding difficulty, but in refusing to surrender identity to it. With each disciplined rehearsal, you reinforce sovereignty. Thus, the fourth discipline in guarding your destiny is self-directed mental conditioning. Feed your mind before the world does. Define yourself before others attempt it. And through repetition, your chosen belief becomes permanent authority over your imagination and your future. When a man has learned to examine suggestion, substitute fear with faith, guard his associations, and install his own mental regimen, he begins to stand apart from the average current of influence. The difference is not loud. It is not theatrical. It is steady. The programmed individual reacts quickly to headlines, to gossip, to shifting opinion. His emotional tone rises and falls with the prevailing mood. His confidence fluctuates according to public approval. He is sincere, yet he is carried. The self-directed man listens, evaluates, and then decides. He does not deny facts, yet he does not surrender to tone. His response originates within rather than from the noise around him. This difference becomes visible over time. Mental sovereignty produces a quality others can feel. It appears as calm assurance. It sounds like deliberate speech. It expresses itself through measured decision. People may describe such a man as composed or confident without realizing that his confidence was constructed deliberately. Steadiness attracts responsibility. Employers promote those who remain balanced under pressure. Associates trust those who do not magnify rumor. Clients rely upon those whose tone communicates certainty rather than alarm. Chosen belief compounds. Each time you resist borrowed fear, you strengthen independence. Each time you affirm purpose over panic, you reinforce authority. Over months and years, the accumulation becomes significant. In uncertain conditions, the self-directed man becomes stabilizing force. When others are shaken by reports, he reviews facts calmly. When others predict collapse, he searches for advantage. His demeanor steadies those around him. This transformation alters destiny. The reactive man consumes years responding to external change. The directive man invests years shaping his response. The first spends energy in adjustment after adjustment. The second conserves energy through internal consistency. 10 years may be saved by refusing to dwell upon every alarming prediction. 20 years may be preserved by maintaining direction during seasons of public doubt. 30 years may be gained when you cease abandoning plans because of temporary discouragement. Service strengthens this sovereignty. When you focus upon rendering useful service, you diminish the influence of personal fear. Contribution broadens perspective. It reminds you that your value lies in what you give, not in what others predict. Andrew Carnegie's enterprises expanded because he concentrated upon production and cooperation rather than popular apprehension. His internal direction governed external action. Over time, your example influences others. They observe that you do not collapse under strain. They witness your consistent return to purpose. Your steadiness becomes silent instruction. This is how leadership is formed, not through authority imposed, but through confidence demonstrated. A self-directed mind commands respect because it reflects control. Say daily, I am not governed by public opinion. I choose my dominant thoughts. I respond with faith and purpose. My mind is sovereign. Through repetition, this affirmation becomes conviction. Conviction becomes character. Character becomes destiny. The world will continue offering programming. It will suggest limitation. It will magnify crisis. It will reward conformity. Yet you are not required to accept its script. You may live as product of repetition or as architect of your own belief. The choice is renewed each day. When you master your dominant thoughts, you master your direction. When you master your direction, you master your time. And when you master your time, you master your life. Thus, the promise is fulfilled. You do not permit a negative world to program you. You select, substitute, guard, and reinforce your own convictions. In doing so, you save years once lost to borrowed doubt. You accelerate progress once delayed by hesitation. You build reputation grounded in steadiness. The self-directed man does not silence the world. He simply refuses to let it define him. His imagination remains under his authority. His ambition remains anchored to purpose. Affirm finally, my thoughts are chosen. My beliefs are deliberate. My destiny is directed from within. No external noise has the right to define my capacity. And in that disciplined authority lies freedom, power, and enduring achievement untouched by the shifting tone of the world around you.